Sophia Reynolds adjusted her blazer, straightening her posture as she walked down the long corridor of Sterling and Company headquarters. Today was the day. 15 years. 15 years of relentless hard work, late nights, and sacrifice. She had outperformed every benchmark, landed deals worth billions, and transformed failing accounts into the company's biggest assets. And now, it was time for her promotion. Vice President of Business Strategy. She had earned it. She had fought for it. And after all this time, she was finally going to take her seat at the table. As she approached the executive conference room, she could already hear the muffled voices inside. A final decision was being made. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself, then reached for the door handle. But before she could step in, she heard her name and froze. "She's great at what she does," a voice said. Richard Whitman, the CEO. His tone was measured, dismissive. "But let's be honest, Sophia just doesn't have the leadership presence we need at the executive level." Silence. Then another voice spoke up. "Catherine Ellis." Sophia's stomach twisted. She had trusted Catherine. Mentored her. Helped her climb the ranks as one of the few other women in senior leadership. If anyone would advocate for her, it would be Catherine. Or so she thought. "Richard's right," Catherine said smoothly. "Sophia is good, really good. But she's more of a behind-the-scenes player. Not quite VP material." The blood drained from Sophia's face. Behind the scenes? Not VP material? Everything else faded, the polished floors, the towering skyline outside the window, the faint buzz of phones ringing in the distance. Mark Dalton's voice broke the silence next. "Well, I suppose that settles it." Mark. The man she had outperformed at every turn. The man who lost a major client last quarter while she saved the firm's biggest deal. The man who had spent years making jokes about women being too emotional for leadership. Sophia knew what was coming before Whitman even said it. "Mark, congratulations. You'll be our new vice president." The room erupted in polite applause. A decision had been made. Sophia stood frozen outside the door, her hand still gripping the handle. 15 years. 15 years, and they had never even considered her. She turned on her heel and walked away, pulse pounding in her ears. But as she passed by the glass wall that overlooked the city, she caught her own reflection. She saw the woman they had dismissed. The woman they had overlooked. The woman they had just told would never be enough. And in that moment, she made a decision. If they wouldn't give her a seat at their table, she would build her own. Sophia sat alone in her office, the door shut, the weight of the last 15 years pressing down on her like a collapsing building. She had dedicated everything to this company, her time, her energy, even parts of herself she could never get back. And for what? To be overlooked. To be dismissed. To hear another woman, someone she had supported, agree that she wasn't VP material. Her eyes drifted to the gold-framed award on her desk. Top Performer of the Year. She had won it 3 years in a row. What did it mean now? Her phone buzzed. A text. "Jeremy Faulkner, still thinking about my offer?" Sophia's heart pounded. Jeremy had been a longtime friend and venture capitalist who had once told her, "If you ever decide to leave Sterling, call me. I'd back you in a heartbeat." She had laughed at the time. She had been loyal to this company. Now? A sharp knock at the door broke her thoughts. It was Catherine Ellis. "Sophia," she said, stepping inside as if nothing had happened. "Can we talk?" Sophia folded her arms. "I think we already did." Catherine hesitated. For the first time, she looked uncomfortable. "It's not personal," she said finally. "You know how it works at this level. It's about presence. Influence. Mark just fits the mold better." Sophia let out a dry laugh. "The mold?" Catherine sighed, dropping her polished corporate act for just a moment. "Look, I get it. I really do. But if you push too hard, you'll just make it worse for yourself. Sophia stared at her, the words hitting deeper than she expected. Make it worse for myself? That was it. That was the moment everything snapped into place. She wasn't going to make it worse. She was going to make it impossible for them to ignore her. She stood up. You know, Catherine, she said calmly, powerfully, I think you're right. Catherine looked relieved. Good. I knew you'd see reason. Sophia picked up her phone, scrolled to Jeremy's number, and hit dial. Jeremy, she said, her voice steady. Let's talk. Then, without another word, she grabbed her coat, walked past Catherine, and left Sterling and Company for the last time. Part 3, The First Move. Sophia sat at the corner booth of an upscale Manhattan cafe, her fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. Outside, the city bustled with the rhythm of ambition, but inside, she was completely still. Across from her, Jeremy Faulkner, venture capitalist and longtime industry player, leaned back in his seat, watching her with amused curiosity. I have to admit, he said, smirking, I wasn't expecting your call so soon. Sophia exhaled. Neither was I. Jeremy nodded, waiting. He wasn't the kind of man who wasted time. I want to build something, she said, finally. Something that doesn't just compete with Sterling, but makes them irrelevant. Jeremy raised an eyebrow. You want to take them down? She took a slow sip of coffee before answering. No, she said. I want to replace them. Jeremy let out a low chuckle. Now that's interesting. Sophia pulled a sleek black folder from her bag and placed it on the table. I know Sterling better than anyone. Their strengths, their weaknesses. I spent 15 years making them millions, but they're stuck in the past. They cater to corporate giants while ignoring the mid-market firms that are actually growing. That's where the real power shift is happening. Jeremy opened the folder, scanning her research. It was meticulous, surgical, a breakdown of industry trends, Sterling's declining innovation, the massive untapped potential in their blind spots. He whistled low. You really came prepared. Sophia met his gaze. I don't have the luxury of waiting. Jeremy leaned forward, intrigued. All right. Let's say I back this. You'd need capital, infrastructure, a solid team. I have the team, she cut in. Sterling's best people are already looking for an exit. They see the writing on the wall. They just need somewhere to go. Jeremy smirked. And you're giving them an option. Sophia smiled. I'm giving them a future. Jeremy tapped his fingers on the table, considering. Then, he extended his hand. Let's build an empire. Sophia shook it without hesitation. As she left the cafe, stepping into the cool Manhattan air, she pulled out her phone and drafted a single message. To confidential contact list. Subject, a new opportunity. If you're ready for something bigger, let's talk. It's time for something new. She hit send. The war had begun. Part 4, The Rise of Vanguard. Sophia had expected pushback. She hadn't expected a flood. Within 48 hours of sending that email, her inbox was overflowing. Former colleagues, industry insiders, even clients of Sterling and Company, all reaching out, all saying the same thing. I'm in. Sterling had spent years building a reputation for dominance, but their arrogance had blinded them to a simple truth: loyalty doesn't come from power. It comes from respect. And Sterling had been bleeding respect for a long time. Sophia moved fast. She secured a temporary office in Midtown, just a few blocks from Sterling's headquarters, a tactical choice. Every time one of their executives walked by, they'd see the company that was coming to replace them. She named it Vanguard Capital. Not just a financial firm. Not just another player in the game. A movement. A rebellion. A warning shot. Her first hires? Not just the best. The right people. Rosa Martinez, a senior strategist who had watched lesser men take credit for her work for over a decade. Caleb Dunn, a data analyst who had tried, and failed, to modernize Sterling's outdated systems. And then, the biggest win, Thomas Grant, a former senior partner at Sterling. A man who had been passed over for CEO because the board wanted someone younger. When he walked into Sophia's new office and shook her hand, she knew. Sterling wasn't just losing people. They were losing their foundation. Within 6 months, Vanguard Capital was everywhere. They landed 5 major clients Sterling had ignored, considering them too small to matter. They leveraged AI-driven financial modeling, something Sophia had pitched years ago at Sterling, only to be told it was too risky. And then came the headlines. Sterling and Company faces unprecedented client exodus. Industry disruptor Vanguard Capital poised to overtake legacy firms. Sterling had spent decades at the top. Now, they were scrambling. One afternoon, as Sophia sat in her office, her assistant knocked, holding a printed memo. "You're going to want to see this." It was an internal email from Sterling's leadership team. Profits were plummeting. Employee turnover had doubled. And then, in bold print at the bottom of the page, "We need to consider outside investment or a potential acquisition." Sophia's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. Sterling and Company was crumbling. And she wasn't done yet. Part 5, The Power Move. Sterling and Company was unraveling. Sophia watched from her office at Vanguard, sipping coffee as another headline broke. Sterling and Company faces financial turmoil as top clients defect to Vanguard Capital. Whitman and his board had underestimated her, dismissing her as not leadership material. Now, they were in full crisis mode, hemorrhaging clients, struggling to convince investors they still had control. And then, the moment she had been waiting for. An email. Subject, Urgent Discussion Request. From Richard Whitman, CEO, Sterling and Company. Sophia leaned back in her chair, a slow, knowing smile forming. She had won. The meeting was set at an exclusive law firm in Midtown. Neutral ground. Sophia arrived exactly on time. Inside, the men who had once dismissed her, replaced her, mocked her now sat stiffly in their chairs. Whitman cleared his throat. "Sophia, thank you for meeting with us." She crossed her legs, tilting her head slightly. "Of course." He forced a smile. "Sterling has had a challenging quarter. But we believe there's an opportunity for a partnership." A partnership. Sophia let the word linger in the air. They didn't want a partnership. They wanted a lifeline. Whitman continued, "Sterling has the legacy, the infrastructure. Vanguard has the momentum. If we join forces, we could." Sophia cut him off with a slight raise of her hand. "I have a counteroffer." Silence. She placed a black folder on the table. "I'll acquire Sterling and Company," she said evenly. "Absorb it into Vanguard." She let the next words land with precision. "On my terms." Whitman's face paled. "You're talking about a complete takeover." Sophia smiled. "I'm talking about a restructuring." Her eyes flicked toward Mark Dalton, sitting stiffly at the end of the table. She turned toward him fully. "I don't think you're the right fit for this company anymore." The words hung in the air. A perfect reversal of fate. Whitman opened his mouth, desperate to negotiate, but it was over. The deal was signed. Sterling and Company no longer existed. It belonged to her. Part 6, The Legacy Move. Sophia stood in the executive office of what had once been Sterling and Company, now officially part of Vanguard Global Finance. She had won. But this wasn't just about winning. It was about rewriting the rules. The old Sterling board sat in the sleek new conference room, waiting for her decision. Some had fought against her. Some had watched silently as she was cast aside. Now, they answered to her. She stood at the head of the table, commanding the room the way they once claimed she couldn't. Sterling and Company no longer exists, she began. This company failed because it refused to evolve. It put tradition over talent. It rewarded comfort over courage. That's why it collapsed. She placed a single document in front of them. This is the new structure. Some of you will stay. Some of you won't. Murmurs. Shifting in chairs. Tension. She turned to Mark Dalton. I'm giving you two options, she said. You can walk away. Or you can stay, but you start from the bottom. His face flushed. You can't be serious. She leaned forward slightly. Oh, I'm very serious. Her voice was calm, controlled. You once told me leadership was about executive presence. Yet here you are, struggling to keep your seat. Silence. Mark stood and left without another word. Whitman cleared his throat. And the rest of us? Sophia folded her arms. I'm not here to burn the past. I'm here to build the future. The words landed. Not just a takeover, an evolution. This company will be rebranded as Vanguard Global Finance. It will be built on merit, innovation, and vision, not outdated power structures. She stepped toward the door, pausing only once. And if anyone here doesn't see the future I'm building? She gave a small shrug. Then you're not the right fit for this company anymore. With that, she walked out, leaving behind the ashes of what once was. In its place, something stronger, smarter, and entirely hers would rise. Sophia Reynolds hadn't just won. She had changed the game forever. Sophia's story isn't just about revenge, it's about reclaiming power, rewriting the rules, and proving that success belongs to those who refuse to accept limits. Too often, women in the workplace are told they don't fit leadership roles. They're expected to work harder, prove themselves twice as much, and still be overlooked. But Sophia's journey proves something important: you don't have to wait for someone else to recognize your worth. If they won't give you a seat at the table, build your own. She didn't just win back what she lost, she built something bigger, something better. And in doing so, she changed the game forever. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think Sophia made the right decision in the end? What would you have done in her position? Do you believe that success is the best revenge, or should she have fought harder to change the system from within? If you loved this story and found it inspiring, comment 2 below. If you didn't connect with it, comment 7, and let us know why. Want more powerful true stories like this? Then hit the like button and subscribe to EN True Tales for more inspiring journeys every day. Natalie, your storyteller, will be back soon with another incredible story, so make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Your voice matters. Let's talk in the comments.